Today we are going to run step by step through making this killer 3D chrome effect in Photoshop that you can use on any logo or type design. This look has become very popular for the past year or two, and it's actually very easy to do no matter what your skill level is in Photoshop. You just have to know the right steps. And as a little bonus, somewhere towards the end of the video, I'm gonna show you guys how to make your own flares from scratch to really spice this thing up. Also, I'm still moving into my new place right now, so forgive my setup or lack thereof. I'll take care of that later, but let's jump into Photoshop and make something cool. So we're gonna open up a new document in Photoshop. We're gonna change the measurement to inches, and we're going to change the size to 20 by 20 inches. When creating raster art like this, it's important to create it bigger than what you need because raster art isn't infinitely scalable. You can always scale it down, but you can't scale it up past the size that it was made without things falling apart on you. In this case, we're printing for a t-shirt, so 20 by 20 gives us more than enough room to play around with, and we can scale it down to whatever size it needs to be when it comes time to print it onto the actual shirt. Set your resolution to 300 pixels per inch. We're gonna leave the color mode in RGB. We can change that later on if we need to for some reason anyways, but we're all looking at screens right now, so RGB it is. And we're gonna set the color bit depth to 16-bit just to help smooth things out a little bit. And we're gonna set the background contents to black. Also, before we start, you're gonna wanna make sure you have the swatches window, the properties and adjustments windows, and the layers window all open in your workspace. If you're missing any of those for any reason, you can go up here to window and select any of the ones that you're missing. So first we're gonna need the base of our artwork. This can be some text or a logo or a design of some kind. It really doesn't matter. All of these steps are going to be the same no matter which one you choose to follow along with here today. If you're looking for a cool font, maybe check this one out that we have on our website, roguelabmfg.com. Gotta get those shameless self-plugs in there. I'm gonna use my shop logo today because whatever I come up with here is going to end up on a t-shirt or a sticker or something like that. So we're gonna bring our logo into Photoshop simply by drag and dropping it in there. Or if you need to, you can go up to File and Place Embedded and choose the file that you need. I'm also going to scale this thing up by hitting Command T, and then I'm gonna press Option as I drag it up, and that's gonna scale it up perfectly from the center to, I'm gonna scale it up somewhere around there, looks good enough to me. Next, we're gonna go down to our layers window and double click the artwork to bring up our layer style options. This is where most of the magic happens, and all of these settings that I'm about to rattle off here should all be tweaked to suit your specific design. This will all still be editable when we're done here, so when you're finished following along, jump back into this stuff and play around for a while and get that design popping the way that you want it to. But we're gonna turn on 4 things here. We're gonna turn on Bevel and Emboss, we're gonna turn on Inner Shadow, we're gonna turn on Satin, and we're gonna turn on Gradient Overlay. I like to turn all 4 of them on right from the jump because I find it makes it a lot easier to see my work as I go. But we're going to start off in the Bevel and Emboss tab. Most of the Photoshop defaults aren't going to get touched. I'm just gonna bring up the stuff that definitely needs to be a certain setting. We're gonna set the style to Inner Bevel, that's already there. Technique to Smooth, that's good. The depth, we're gonna crank this up all the way to 1000 and make sure the direction is set to up. Now with the size slider, this is what's going to determine how much of a 3D effect you get out of your design. The higher that number goes, the more peaked off and rounded it becomes. So I'm gonna crank this thing up a little bit. I'm gonna go up to wherever it starts to look good to me, right around there. 46 is cool. I don't wanna go past this because it's gonna round a lot of stuff off if I really crank it up, see what I mean? And I really wanna retain that sort of flat-faced look that I had going on. I think that's gonna suit this design best. So 46 is looking pretty good. And I'm gonna crank the soften up to somewhere around 8 just to smoothen that out a little bit. These next couple settings, angle, altitude, none of that is going to change. The gloss contour, this is where you can do some pretty unique stuff. So if you click this little drop down arrow right here, there are a bunch of presets ready to go for you. I recommend any of these 3 right here for this style of a design. Or if you want to get real crazy with it, you can click inside this box and you can make your own custom curves and make something completely one of a kind. I'm not going to create a custom one today. I'm going to use one of those presets. So I'm going to choose this one right here with this kind of wavy step down look. Then we have the Inner Shadow tab. We're gonna leave the blend mode on multiply. We're gonna leave the color set to black, and we're just gonna crank up the opacity to somewhere around, let's go with like 60% or so, 61, whatever. These next 3 settings, the distance, the size, and the choke, this will all change depending on your design and how much depth you're trying to give it. I'm just gonna kind of wing this part. So the distance, we're gonna set that to, let's go somewhere around, I don't know, 24, that's fine. The choke, let's pull that up a little bit to Let's go with like 30, yeah, 36 is fine. And then the size, I'm gonna pull that up just a little bit more. Let's go with 16. We don't really have to get super precise with a lot of this stuff. It's art, it's supposed to be fun. Going over to the Satin tab now, we're gonna leave the blend mode on multiply. We're gonna leave the color set to black. I'm gonna bring the opacity down just a tiny little ball here, like 46%, 45%. The distance and size, we're gonna bring up a little bit too. So we're gonna bring this up to like 30 something. Let's go to like 35. And then the size, I'm gonna bring up quite a bit actually. Right around there, 84. We're also gonna mess with the contour in this section too. So I'm gonna hit this little drop down menu and I'm gonna select this one right here that kind of looks like a little quarter pipe. And then finally the gradient overlay section. This is where that sort of simulated light is going to come from in your design. So when we're all done here today, that's probably one of the first ones you should mess around with. We're gonna first change the blend mode. So we're gonna change that to multiply. We're gonna leave the opacity cranked to 100 and we're gonna click inside this gradient box and we're gonna change that. So open up this little folder that says basics and we're gonna use this one that just goes black to white. And for some reason, mine goes black to green to white. I have no idea why. Let's see if I can fix that real quick. Let's just make it black again and see if that, wow, that fixed it. Right on, Photoshop, figure your shit out. Next, we're gonna change the style. We're gonna change that to reflected, and we're going to click this little box that says reverse over here to the right. And also make sure you've got align with layer selected. That's just gonna center this thing up properly on your design. Now with the angle, this part is kind of up to you and whatever suits the flow of your design. With this design, I'm kind of thinking a sort of downward angle is gonna look best. So I'm just gonna grab this little angle wheel and I'm gonna freestyle it around until something looks good to me. So I'm gonna just click it around. Somewhere between 50 and 60, I'm thinking is gonna be the ticket. 56, let's go up a little bit more, maybe 57. Right there is cool. I'm good with that. So close that out, moving on. Now with that part out of the way, go down to your layers window and make sure you've got your artwork selected. And we're gonna group it by hitting Command G. And I'm also just gonna rename this thing to logo, just so I know what I'm looking at. This part is very important, so don't skip it. This allows us to make the rest of our edits, and those edits will affect the logo and all of those layer styles that we just added to it. If you don't do this part, all the edits are only going to affect the original logo and none of the other stuff that we just did. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. That's just one of those Photoshop things that annoys the crap out of me. Next, we're gonna start adding a couple adjustment layers here. So we're gonna go to our adjustments window and we're gonna add this one right here that says curves. And when you click on it, it should automatically open up the properties window where we can edit it. Now we're gonna add a pretty aggressive S curve to this line right here. So we'll start off by adding 2 points to it. Click one in down here by the shadows and one up here by the highlights. Then we're just gonna drag our shadows point 3/4 of the way up, and we're going to drag our highlights point in the same fashion, like 1/4 of the way from the bottom. This is a solid starting point for any of these chrome style designs, but you can mess around with it a lot to get more subtle or more aggressive looks out of it. I'm kind of thinking we should go a little bit more aggressive with this one, so I'm just gonna grab the shadows and I'm gonna bring them up just a little bit more, and I'm gonna do the same thing with the highlights. And now you can see we are really starting to get that chrome effect coming out of this thing. One more adjustment layer to add. We're gonna move back over here to our adjustments window. And this time we're going to add this one right here that says gradient map. And before we do anything else, actually, we're gonna select that gradient map and we're gonna hold Shift and also click on the curves layer so that they're both selected. And we're gonna right click on them and create a clipping mask out of them. This is so that this only affects the logo and not the background and everything else around it. But now the fun part, we get to add all the cool colors to this thing. So we're gonna click on our gradient map here and that should open up the properties window for us automatically. We're gonna click on this little gradient to open up our gradient editor. I could seriously do an hour-long video on this thing because the possibilities with it are nearly endless, but I'm gonna give you a quick little rundown on how it works right now, just in case you're a total beginner. It should default you with a black to white gradient, which we're going to keep because we're actually going to use that later on. If you click anywhere below this bar right here, you can add as many colors as you wish to it, and you can also slide these things around. If you wanna change the color of any of these, you can click on it and just go down here to the color picker, or to make your life easy, you can just double click on the point and it will open it up for you automatically. If you want to change how smooth those colors blend, you can just click on a point and grab one of these little diamonds and drag it to make it a super harsh cutoff or a super smooth transition into the next color, whatever you like best. And if for any reason you want to get rid of some of these points, all you have to do is just click on them and drag them away from that bar and away they go. So now that you know how the gradient editor works, we're gonna start off with 3 points. We already have 2, 1 on each side, and we're gonna click somewhere around the middle to add a third one. But I'm gonna double click this thing, I'm gonna change it to white, and I'm also going to change this far right one to black, so that we have a black to black gradient setup. This is gonna be the base for your colors because this is the highlights and the shadows, but anywhere else you wanna click in and start adding colors, it's totally up to you. Get crazy with it. I'm gonna go for a sort of purple chrome look here today. I think that's gonna be dope. So I'm gonna go with blue, purple, and pink because those colors are all very complementary to each other. And let's be honest, it's pretty easy to make a cool looking design using them. So I'm gonna start adding some color points here. I'm gonna put one there. Let's change it to a blue. I don't wanna use like really bright primary colors. I'm gonna use sort of washed out ones just to give this a little bit more of a realistic, maybe a more retro vibe. So somewhere around there for the blue. I'm gonna click another one in here. I'm gonna change this one to purple. So I'm just gonna scroll that up to somewhere right around there. Looks pretty good, I think. Right there is cool. And then I'm going to add a pink one right here. Let's just scroll that up. And actually I'm gonna move my picker around a little bit more. Let's lighten that up just a tiny bit. I definitely need more here, but I also don't want it to get super repetitive. So I'm gonna add another one here and just another one here. And this is actually why we have the swatches window open, because this point, I want it to be the same purple. So I can just click on that point and go up here to the swatches window and select that purple. And then this one, I'm going to change to the blue. So I'm happy with my base colors now. All we have to do is start sliding these things around and get the look that we want. So I'm gonna start off by bringing in a lot more black to this thing just to really kind of give it some depth. So that one I'm gonna bring to there. This one to somewhere around here should probably be okay. I'm gonna move the white over a little bit because that should shift our highlight a little bit more to the center, somewhere right around there. And now I'm just gonna start tightening up some of this stuff. I'm gonna bring the pink to right around there. Let's bring in the purple. Let's bring the blue way over so that it brings in a lot more black, like so. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna move that around and move that to somewhere right around there. Actually, you know what? I wanna take a little bit of black out of this thing. I think I went a little bit too crazy, so I'm just gonna slide that one over a little bit, maybe pull that black out there, and let's even out the purple. That's looking a lot better now. Just in case you want to use these exact same slider settings for your design, I'm gonna throw them up on the screen right now for you to take a screenshot, but otherwise, I'm really pumped with how these colors are coming out. This is about 80% finished to me. To some of you, this might already be exactly what you want, and I don't blame you. It's starting to look pretty dope, but we can take this a few steps further and really trick this thing out. And if you wanna learn how to trick out pretty much anything in Photoshop, then you might wanna check out today's video sponsor, Skillshare. Hot damn, that was a slick segue. Skillshare is an online learning community filled with thousands of killer classes to help you step up your creative game. About 5 years ago, I could barely open Photoshop, let alone create a cool design in it. Seriously, I was pretty useless. I actually went and got myself a Skillshare membership to learn the basics of Photoshop and get myself started. And now you can too, for free, because they are giving away a free 1-month trial membership to the first 1,000 of you guys who join the community using the link in the description below. If you're one of those lucky people, I recommend checking out this class right here by Daniel Scott to learn all of those delicious Photoshop basics. So make sure to go check that out, and thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. So to really finish this thing off, we're gonna add some flares or glints or sparkles, whatever you wanna call them. And we're gonna add some noise. You could try to find flare PNGs or flare brushes out there in Google land, but most of the stuff that you're gonna come across is either low resolution garbage or assets that you're gonna have to pay for. So instead of doing that, I'm gonna show you a real quick and dirty way to make your own flares with only a few steps. So we are going to open up another document here. We're gonna probably not set this one to 20 by 20 because that seems a little bit ridiculous. So let's just make this 8 by 8. Let's leave the resolution at 300, RGB, 16-bit, all that stuff. Create a new document. The first thing we're gonna do is go over here to the left and select our shape tool, but we're gonna right click on it and go down here to the polygon tool. And we're gonna go up to the top bar. We're gonna change that fill to white. And we're also going to get rid of the stroke just by clicking this little box with the red line in it. Then we're gonna move over to here with this little weird symbol. This is the number of sides in our polygon, so we're gonna change that to 4. And we are also going to click on this little gear icon beside it, and we're gonna go down here to where it says star ratio. We're gonna set that to 5%. Next, we're gonna hold Shift and click and drag out our very first star shape here. And I'm going to hit Command T to resize it as well as rotate it. So first we're gonna rotate it, hold Shift and go up to one of these corners. I'm gonna rotate it up 90 degrees, and then I'm gonna hold Option and grab any one of these points and drag it out so that it scales from the center. Right there, looks good. Then with that layer still selected, you're gonna hit Command J to duplicate it, and then we're gonna hit Command T again and resize this one, but first we're gonna rotate it. So we're gonna hold Shift again, rotate this thing 90 degrees, and then hold Option again and drag one of these points in till it's about half the size of the other one, maybe a little bit more. So somewhere right around there. Then we're gonna go down here to the bottom and create a new layer. We're gonna go over to the left, grab our brush tool, or you can hit the B key. We're gonna make sure that you've got the soft round brush selected. That's very important. Once you got that, we're gonna go somewhere to the center here and just click one time, give ourselves a little bit of a glow effect. Then we're gonna select those 3 layers. We're gonna select everything except for the background layer. So I'm gonna hold Shift and grab those 3. I'm gonna hit Command G to group it, and then I'm gonna right click it, and I'm going to convert that to a smart object. With that part done, we're gonna go up here to Filter. We're gonna select Blur and go down to Gaussian Blur. And this part you can kind of play with a little bit. You don't wanna do too little because we wanna get rid of those harsh edges, but you also will lose most of your design if you go too crazy with it. So I'm gonna go down to somewhere probably like 15–20%. And then just to give this thing a little bit more razzle dazzle, we're gonna double click on that layer to bring up our layer style options, and we are going to give it some outer glow. We're gonna just change a couple settings here quick. The first one being the contour. We're gonna change that to this kind of double step down looking one right here that we used earlier. That's gonna give this that sort of natural flare look, which looks really cool, except it's way too aggressive right now. So we're just gonna turn the opacity way down to like 15–20%, somewhere in there. And then to finish it off, we're just gonna change the color. We're gonna change it to something that's gonna go with our design. And most flares have like a bit of a purple or magenta look to them anyways, so it kind of works out perfect for us here. So I'm gonna go with something right around there. That's looking pretty good to me. We'll do any final adjustments when we bring this over to our artwork, but that's a really quick and easy way to come up with flares. So save this for later on. You can come back and edit it, use it for other designs, whatever you need. But we're gonna copy and paste this into our artwork right now, obviously. So the first thing that I wanna do is I'm gonna right click this thing and I'm gonna convert it into a smart object. That's because when we start scaling this thing, moving it around, all that stuff that we did will get way out of whack, and we don't want that to happen. So smart object will keep that from happening. I'm gonna hit Command C to copy it. We're gonna go into our artwork window, and I'm gonna hit Command V to paste it in. Now when we place these things, you wanna place them in spots that make sense, and that's in the highlight areas. So this one right here that has a really hot highlight going on, or spots like this that have something sharp, wherever you think you're gonna naturally see a little glitter of light come off of something. So we're actually gonna start with that first spot that I pointed out because it's kind of perfect. So right there looks good. Obviously this is absurdly huge, so I'm gonna hit Command T and we're gonna hold Option and scale that down to the center. You don't want them to be huge. We're looking for subtle here. So somewhere right around there, that's looking pretty good to me. And actually I'm just gonna kind of wiggle the placement just a little bit. We definitely need to add a couple more of these things, but I'm gonna warn you right now, don't go overboard with it. I've seen people go a little too crazy with them, start adding flares in every which direction, and by the time they're done, it looks a little ridiculous in my opinion. You want just enough to make your design pop, so just a little sprinkle of them will get you a long way. I'm thinking 2 or 3 with this design, so we could duplicate it by hitting Command J, or we could click on it and hold Option and just drag another one off of it. And I'm gonna put another one right down here. We have another hot spot, so that's looking pretty good. And I'm also gonna hit Command T and just scale that one down a little bit just to give this a little bit of variance. And we're gonna put one more in this thing somewhere. I'm kind of thinking right here at the top of the A. We've got a sharp spot right there, and that way all of them kind of follow the same direction from the light source. Kind of makes sense to me. So we're gonna go Option, drag, we're gonna put this one here, and this one we're just adding just a little subtle guy in there. So let's bring that thing way down right to there. And with these flares being smart objects, they are still editable. So I wanna make just a little tweak to them. I'm gonna go down here to our layers window and double click inside of that square. That will enter us into the smart object. I'm going to double click this thing, and I'm gonna add just a little bit of a color overlay. I'm gonna go with a little bit of a pink overlay to these things, just so it's not that harsh white color. So I'm gonna go with a really heavy magenta, fuchsia, whatever you wanna call that, and bring the opacity way down. We're talking like 11%. Right there is good. Hit OK. I'm gonna hit Command S to save. Once it's done saving, I'm just gonna close that window out. And now all of our little flares have that little bit of a pink tone to them because they're all duplicates of each other. So they kind of global edit themselves when you do one. It's really nice how that works out. We're on the final step now. I feel like it took forever for us to get here, but thankfully this step is very quick, very easy. We're gonna add a little bit of noise to this thing. This part is totally optional, but I feel like it helps smooth things out a little bit. Definitely gives it some texture and it gives it a little bit of a retro vibe, which is something that I kind of like. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna select everything we got except for the background layer, and we're gonna hit Command G to make a group out of that, and we're gonna right click it and convert it to a smart object again. Once you've done that, just go up here to filter, scroll down to noise, select add noise. You only need to add a little bit here, but again, you can go with whatever looks good to you. Obviously 100% is way too much, so we're gonna bring that down to like 15%, I think, and see what that looks like. So I'm just gonna zoom in on this real quick and get a closer look, which that looks pretty good, but I think we could get away with just a little bit more. So I'm gonna go over here to where it says add noise, double click on that, set the amount to 18. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's zoom back out and check out what we did. That is one super badass looking 3D Chrome logo right there. I mean, seriously. That thing is good. And actually, a very fast bonus tip, if you quickly want to see what this is going to look like in different colors, you can go over here to your adjustments window and add a hue saturation layer and just start messing with that hue slider. See what comes out of it. It's looking pretty cool in different colors right now. Actually, holy shit, when we go over to this golden red, I have a strong feeling that this is going to end up on a shirt too. That's kind of the perk / curse of owning a print shop. Anytime you come up with something cool, you make way too much stuff. Anyways, if you learned something cool and new here today, please throw a thumbs up on this video for me. Those things really help. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do tons of cool shit like this here on a regular basis that you're not gonna wanna miss. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you again in the next one. I just spent the last 2.5 hours, shot this entire video only to find out that this house has incredibly dirty power. When this camera is plugged into the wall with AC power, completely ruined all of the audio. So here I am, starting over again. Dude, I love shooting these desk videos because I only have to make myself look half decent from here up. Down below, dirty old sweatpants, no socks on. It's actually a miracle that I'm even wearing pants right now. My throat is fucking killing me from talking for 5 hours straight. I can't believe I had to reshoot this whole video. I'm in so much pain right now. Oh, I'm done. My throat, I feel like I swallowed a bucket of nails. Please, share this video with your friends. This was a rough one today.